Hello, hello, and welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Peo. Of course, I'm your host, Nate Peo. Today, my guest is Sam Kamani. Sam is a serial entrepreneur, co founder, and CEO of ProductDone, the company on a mission to help early stage founders and startups bring their idea to life. Sam has also authored and published two books, The 30-Day Startup and Business in the Time of Corona. Since graduating in computer science, Sam has worked in 3 continents before starting ProductDone and has had 2 exits. Currently, he's working on his new podcast where he interviews founders and investors. Welcome to the show, Sam. How are you?
Thank you so much, Nate. Thank you for inviting me on your show. It's great to be here. I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. So, first off, like the time of Corona, I mean, we're in probably what, month 5 of it right now. By the time this goes live, it'll probably be a little bit longer. But
Yes.
where did you decide to create a book about business in Corona? Like, what kind of drove that idea, and like, where did you realize that you had enough insight to write a whole book on that topic?
So this book is all about pivoting, whether it is pivoting your career, pivoting your business, or pivoting your startup. How this came about was I was seeing two very different perspectives on everything. It just felt like the whole world was divided. On one side, there were the people who want to hold on to the old ways of doing things. And on the other side, there were people who are open to innovate and open to move forward and were positive regardless of the situation they were in. And I was talking with all these sort of founders and I was thinking, how are they thriving, not only surviving, but thriving in this sort of situation? And that made me write this book that, yes, things are difficult, but it has only brought in digital transformation that everyone knew about. Every company, every board of director of a large company knew that they had to adopt this digital transformation and adopt the new way of doing things, but they were all still holding on to the old way of doing things and just kick the can down the road that someone else will deal with, remote working or online selling or whatever it might be, however you might want to approach it. So in this book, it's all about pivoting through innovation or innovation led pivot. That's what the key thing of this book is. And then the other part of the book is a lot about how do you come out of a hard situation, something along the lines of earlier, how do you go all in? So that's what the book is all about.
Well, I'm glad you found time to write that, but I think that was an interesting take you talked about, and I don't know if you really gave your opinion on it, so I might ask you to it here. But when
Sure.
COVID hit, I was talking to some people that advise startups, right? Whether
Yeah.
they run incubators and stuff like this, and I was like saying, hey, look, we're in this. This was like right when it got started. It's like, hey, we're in this weird period where like we don't know what's going on. We don't know how long we're going to
Mm.
be adjusting. So instead of doing nothing, let's do something. Let's get out there and like host some virtual pitch contests and let's have conversations. And my thought was, you, no matter what, need to be selling. If you're in the startup space, whatever you're selling, whatever you're doing, right, you need to be
Yes.
either selling your company to customers or selling your company to investors. One of the two. Constantly putting your name out there and getting in front of people. And some of the opinions were, oh no, they need to stop promoting their business and they need to conserve cash and just really get into survival mode. And I was like, well, I just felt like as soon as you had that mindset, like you're done. Like if you're in startup, like if you're not gaining ground, you're losing ground. And survival mode just kind of goes like, hey, we're just going to kind of button up the hatches and lay all the people off. We need to do stuff. It's like there's so much opportunity. Like you look at like when the 2008 bubble hit, when the economy crashed, people didn't know what was going on. Like what came out of it, like Dropbox and Instagram and WhatsApp and all these big tech companies came out, and probably because they kept pushing forward versus pulling back. So what was kind of your take on what founders should have been doing, or should they still be doing, when we don't know what the outcome is likely to be?
Yes, sure. The first, like, number one thing that I even ask on my podcast is, every founder I ask them is, what is the first thing you sold? Because as you say, sales is, and the ability to sell is what makes the difference between really good founders and not so good, because it's not only about selling your product, you are selling your ideas, whether it is selling an idea to someone who is really talented to come and work for you, or why they should work for you, or selling it to your investors, as you said, or to your family members on, why you should go on this path of entrepreneurship, or whatever. You are continuously selling ideas to your kids, like why they should go to bed early. So sales is, the ability to sell is super important for any founder. And as you say that, yes, I understand what a lot of these incubators and accelerators were thinking at that time, that, hey, batten down the hatches, just go in hibernation for a little while, and don't do anything, and then once we are out, then go big. But then you have to evolve. You have to evolve with the situation, and everyone has limited information. We still don't know what is going to happen in 3 months time, or 6 months time, or 2 years time, how this is all going to play out. But that does not mean you completely freeze and you stop. One of the things that I do say in the book is, the first thing is, surround yourself with like-minded positive people, because when you have a positive mindset, your brain is more likely to come up with solutions. But when you are continuously focused on negative thing, that becomes the target, and that's what you hit. So absolutely right, as you say, keep selling, keep talking with people, whether it's customers, potential employees, team members, investors. Keep active, because when you are active, it is much easier to find the right direction. I don't know if you have ever driven a car without power steering, like with manual steering.
Yes.
Back in the days. And then when you want to turn, if the car is stationary, it is so hard to turn the steering wheel. But if the car is moving, it is so much easier, even in the manual steering car, to turn it. So that's why you have to keep moving. You will find new opportunities, and you will see different new gaps in the market, or you would see new problems that your startup could solve if you are still moving ahead. But if you are completely frozen, you might be wasting a golden opportunity to innovate and help other people out there.
Mm-hmm. And I like what you said about having the right mindset of how you go through the actions. And I have this theory that ideas become actions and actions become outcomes. The outcomes are kind of indifferent, right? They are going to happen based on what you do. You're going to take actions. You can either take actions towards a goal or against a goal, whatever it is, intentionally or
Yes.
unintentionally, and you get an outcome, right? But your actions are influenced by your ideas. You can still do what you're supposed to do with a bad attitude, and you can still not do what you're supposed to do with a good attitude. But what's going to happen is, the more likely you are to have a bad attitude about that things you're supposed to do, or it's a negative attitude, like, it might influence you to go less aggressive on that idea, or it may make you like, hey,
Yes.
today I don't really feel like doing it, and then all of a sudden you're building momentum in the wrong direction, and you're not acquiring progress on the actions you should be taking towards your outcome that you want to achieve. And when you're not taking the right actions, your outcome changes to some other thing you didn't want, because you're not on the right path. So I think that was a great tidbit of information. I mean, all that stuff was fantastic.
Just 1 second, Nick. There is a bit of crackling on your side, on your mic, when you're speaking. Are you able to?
Let me pause and
Yeah.
all right, so we did get that technical glitch figured out. Hopefully we won't have that problem anymore. So we're just
Yes.
kind of chit-chatting a little bit about mindset, having the right thing. But I do think this is a good time to transition to what is ProductDone? That's what I want to know the answer to. But before you jump right to that answer, let's kind of talk about what led you up to doing that, because we already talked about you've written 2 books, you've worked on 3 continents, you've had 2 exits prior to this startup. What's kind of driven you to be this motivated to create so many things? You've had exits. I'm taking it those were successful exits and not something that was thrust upon you as not being a positive experience. But why? Where did you get your entrepreneurship spirit? What's been your journey to where you're at now? Let's kind of walk through your story a little bit, and then how that led to what product led up to the story of where ProductDone became founded.
Absolutely. So I came to New Zealand as an international student, studied here, and then I found it extremely difficult to find my first job. So kind of I was thrusted into entrepreneurship. It's like when you cannot find a job, go and create yourself one. And that's what was my training ground after applying for hundreds of jobs and being unable to find. I started to use human connection. I started to use networks. I started to learn the potential and the advantages of building your own personal network. So that's what I did. And one thing led to another. I ended up in a very small company that had herbal supplements, that had their own brand that they used to manufacture, but they needed help in promoting it online and building new channels of distribution for them. So I joined them. I brought them such good result that I ended up owning 40% of the company over time. And after running it for 7-8 years, taking that product to Australia, US, some countries in Asia, developing its e-commerce channels, we decided to exit it at the end of 2015. So did that. That was my first exit. That was financially successful exit. Second exit, and after that, I took a year of sabbatical. We had our second baby and all that. In part of the reason why I wanted to exit that business, which was a physical product business, is because I wanted to go back into tech. I'm originally trained as a software developer, and I understand the power of scale that software can provide you, any digital product can provide you. So I was looking for my next thing. That's when I joined this esports company where we build software for esports tournaments, and we had like a loyalty platform for gaming. That did really well with that company. Then we moved to, I was based in Bay Area or in Silicon Valley for a short time promoting that. And then that company also got acquired in 2018. So I was the chief operating officer of that company when that got acquired. After that, I thought that, okay, cool, I've done this twice. Let's go out and help other founders do the same. So that's when I got together with a friend here, Will Smith. We got together and said, look, we think that there is a niche here, there is a need in this niche where there are lots of non-technical founders who need help with building their product. Can we go and help them? So he already had an agency, he already had few employees. Can we get those employees on board? And we went in partnership and we started this company called ProductDone, where we build products for entrepreneurs and startups. So people come to us with ideas, we listen to their idea, we guide them. In many cases, we are not a right fit, then we guide them on the right path or to someone else who might be the right fit for their product or idea. And in some cases where we are a good match, we go out and build a full product for them, or like a MVP, a minimum viable product for that founder or for that startup. So yeah, in short, that's what ProductDone is. That's where we pretty much the first book, the 30-day startup, it's been bought in physical or downloaded on Kindle over 11,000 times now. In the last year, and that's pretty much, we wanted to share our thoughts on how you can build a minimum viable product in 30 days or less. And it's got stories of companies like DoorDash and Dropbox and all sorts of companies who started with a very, very small MVP in a very short time. So that's how it started. And then, yeah, so now we've got a small team of 12 to 15 people, mostly based in New Zealand, most of us. But of course, right now, nearly everyone is working remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting concept for a business because so many people have ideas that they want to implement, but they don't know where to begin. And I think another problem they have, and I've had this problem myself in the past. So when it was probably like 2011, 2012, my wife and I wanted to do something in the wine world, right?
yeah.
And if you remember, there used to be an app called Red Laser, and that you would scan prices at the store, and it would tell you, like, if you had Target, this box of Tupperware is a little bit cheaper at Walmart, or you could buy it online for cheaper, and it'd tell you like where the lowest price was. And we're like, hey, wouldn't this be cool if you could scan a wine label and it would tell you reviews on the wine, if it's good or not, and like what if you like it. And so we thought, like, hey, let's create something like that. And we didn't know where to begin. We didn't know anybody that knew what to do. So we just kind of went down this path and just realized, like, hey, we don't know how to do anything, so let's just you know not pretend we can build it, and let's go do something else. We ended up creating an e-commerce store. And shortly after, some people came out with the product. It was launched. There's a couple apps. One's called Vivino and some other stuff. And I was like, so we're onto something. We just didn't know how to do it. Since then, I've learned that there are companies like yourself that help people develop it. But I think one of the problems people face is, like you said, like, hey, the Dropbox in 30 days, right? Like, what you're thinking doesn't make sense because you're thinking of Dropbox in its current form, right?
Oh,
You're thinking of
exactly.
like how
Yes.
big it is. So you go, oh, I want to create this app and it's going to be this big. It's going to do all these things. But at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, to do all that, that's a lot of money. That's like millions of dollars. It might have been an investment to create this giant thing that you
Yes.
may or may not even work. You might not even be useful. But what you do is create the MVP, which is a really scaled down version of like the minimum amount of features to see what it is.
Yes.
And I think what people also find is where you start and where you end up are two different things. So like Dropbox is
Yeah.
Dropbox now, but when they were founding it, is this where it ended up? Like, is this all the stuff that they thought about making it do? And it just so happened to follow the blueprint exactly? No, they probably started off one path and ended up somewhere else. So how do you get the message to people like, hey, like, let's bring the vision down a little bit, and how do we start getting into that process of developing an idea and turning it into that MVP?
So that is a very interesting thing that you said. I just before this podcast, I had a catch up on Zoom with a founder based in US. Same thing, has an incredible idea, but that idea is too big and doesn't have the budget. So it's the same thing. Gave him the advice on, look, you can build something that is like a facade of what the product would be like, and then in the back end you go and do all the work manually. You don't have to build all the algorithms and all the database and all the systems behind it. Just build the front end. You do all the work and then present the data. It could be even, just send them the reports and email of what the product did, and you just do it manually. Or you go out and raise some money from friends and family and build a first MVP that is functioning. So there are a few or go out to angel investors and funds, and if you can convince them, which would be very, very hard without a product, but if you can, some people do, because so many times investors invest in the founder, not necessarily in the idea, because ideas change and evolve over time. So if you can do that, that's fine. Then go and build the full product if you really, really believe in, and if you already have lots of people pre-signed up for it. So there are lots of different paths, and that's all I do is in the first stage is give them the options. And a lot of the options, they have to do things, or they can do things themselves. They don't even need anyone else on the outside. Just like, DoorDash, how DoorDash got started, it's worth 15 billion or whatever. But when it started, they were all kids in university in Stanford, and they're like, okay, they just build like a form that, if you want to eat a pizza, and then fill out that I want to eat pizza, and then they will go and buy it for you and deliver it. So their phone would ring. They would be in class, in middle of a class in Stanford, and they'd just run out middle of the class to go and buy the pizza and deliver it to someone who's smoking dope, and they'd be like, oh, thanks man, this is great. And that was the start of DoorDash, and they kept doing that, and they did it for a few months. And once that was fruit, I mean, how much money does it take? Not much. So of course you cannot build DoorDash, the version that you see right now, in a week. But what they did, you could, because people they don't really care if there is a massive algorithm driving in the back, or if it's just you yourself going on your small Suzuki delivering things.
I think what you're identifying there is a key thing to think about is, what is your startup? Is it an idea of a solution to a problem, right? Or is it an idea of some sort of tool that just facilitates something, a problem solving, right? So if your idea is to create a tool that facilitates it, it's maybe not as powerful as the problem solving itself. So like DoorDash isn't really like, oh, it's an app that delivers food to yourself. No, it's somebody wants some food and they don't have the time, resources, or whatever to go get it, or they just don't want to, and they want the convenience of it brought to them. So it doesn't really matter how that gets done, but it matters is that it gets done, and then it evolves into making that solution more seamless. And so I think you got to really understand what problem it is you're trying to solve before you just dump a bunch of stuff because you're like, oh, this would be a really cool app. And it's like, well, it's a cool app, but it doesn't really solve a problem. It just kind of does things that people may or may not find useful.
Yeah. The other things to ask is the problem painful enough? Because if the problem is something really trivial and you don't really care, no one is going to keep using the app. You won't get the engagement. And then the other one is that how often does the problem occur? So in the case of DoorDash, it is late, you've already had few wines, or you're smoking weed or whatever, because they started in San Francisco and that was their first client. He was smoking dope and couldn't go out and drive out. And then he wanted to have something other than pizza, because only pizza used to have delivery back in the days. Then you cannot. Then you call these guys, or you go fill out this form, and they only started delivery around their university campus because they know they can just run out and grab it themselves and deliver it. So and they knew that this problem occurs every weekend for a lot of people. They like having a drink, watching a sports game, and then they get hungry and they want to. So it is a recurring problem, and it is a big problem. And so they had mapped out everything in that way when it came to problem, because a lot of us want to solve problems that are not recurring or happening often enough, and they are not painful enough. So people just don't keep using those apps, and those apps are the ones they have to keep spending money on user acquisition all the time, because they have very high churn otherwise.
Yeah. So I think you've covered just a tremendous amount of information, but I also feel like we're barely scratching the surface of what it takes to be a founder and your journey. But I do want to ask your take, and I'm going to word this question a little bit skewed to the normal way I ask it. So what does it mean for you to be all in? But I'm going to skew this not to what it means to be all in for you to be all in, but where do you differentiate when a founder, a startup should be all in on their idea? Like we're talking about, hey, we want to try something out, and we talked about, is it a good idea or is it a bad idea? When do you recommend to your founders that you work with to go all in on their idea?
Okay, that is an excellent question, I have to say. First of all, as a founder, you have to be passionate about solving problems. If you are in it just because you think it's a good idea, then it would be very hard to stay motivated. And if you look at most tech startups, those founders have had a long journey, whether it's 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, whatever time it is. They have and even most startups, it takes 7-8 years to get in their true form. And during those time, you're going to have lots and lots of challenges. But when you are super passionate about solving some problem that goes beyond just a job or just financial success, then you are much more likely to stick with it. So that would be my first thing, that and that's why a lot of people say scratch your own itch, because you are really passionate about solving that problem, now whatever that problem might be in whatever domain. And if it is such a burning problem for you, then the chances are quite high that it is a burning problem for other people as well. So when those things are aligned, where your interests and your passion and your mission and your vision, all these things are aligned, just don't wait, go all in. And whether it is your friends and family or angel investors or VCs, they would be able to see that passion in you, that how passionate you are to solve this, that you are ready to move heaven and earth, whatever it takes to solve this problem. So when you are that, you would, if your solution needs pivoting, your tactics need pivoting, you would pivot them. Your ego won't hold it back. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, awesome answer. So for people that are listening right now and they've got an idea, and they want to chat and see if it makes sense, like, who are those ideal customers, those ideal startups that you work the best with, and really, it just feels like it's not even work, it just clicks?
Yep. So there's 2 points to this answer. First one, from the company that I own and that I work for, it's like ProductDone. For ProductDone, it is mostly founders and startups who want to build a functioning minimum viable product, and they have either some funding from friends and family or from their own savings, and they have a validated idea or a product that they want to build, because we would want you to be successful as well. So those are our ideal people that we partner with. On the other side, personally, I talk with so many founders on a day-to-day basis, just on LinkedIn, and people reach out to me all the time that, hey, I want to do this or that, and can you give me some advice? Very happy to help you out. The other question that I get asked the most is like, where do you start with funding and all that? So that's where I started my podcast, Want Money, Got Money with Same Kamani, where I interview other successful founders who have managed to raise funding and other investors who invest in those sort of founders. So if you are one of those, and if you want to be on my show, please, send me a message on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, and it would be great to have you on the show so other people can learn from your success, from your stories. So
yeah, awesome stuff. So I was going to ask you, where can people go to get connected to you if they want to learn more about you?
Yes, so LinkedIn, I am quite active on LinkedIn. So you can look up for me, Sam Kamani, on LinkedIn. And you can look for my podcasts, Want Money, Got Money. It's on nearly every platform out there. Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Podcasts, any platform out there. And I've got my own website, samkamani.com or productdone.com. So one of these places you can just reach out to me, contact me.
Well, the good news is we'll list all those links in the show notes, so it'll be easy to find you. And I definitely encourage you, if you're any of those people Sam just described, reach out, say hello to Sam, let him know you heard about him on the All In podcast, and have a conversation. And, hopefully it's a successful conversation that leads you to great things with your startup or your advice that you can share with everybody else. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Sam. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nate, for inviting me. It was great chatting with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.